right, welcome back everybody to the Fanatic Wrestling Podcast. I am joined today by the 2019 USA Wrestling Freestyle Coach of the Year, Reece Humphrey. Fist pump. How
What's
you doing,
up?
Coach?
Fist bump. It might be my greatest accomplishment to date, so I'm pretty proud of that. But thanks for having me on, man. I'm excited.
I love it. You are a coach on our store, so people right now, they have the opportunity to go and learn great technique from the Coach of the Year. First question, where were you when you found out that you won that award, and how'd you feel?
So pretty crazy. I was just at home and I found out on Twitter, which is pretty insane. But that's kind of how wrestling is. I didn't hear it from the high ups until after I had won the award. So it was a surprise to me. Just a bunch of notifications when I opened my phone, and that's what it was. So it was pretty weird because of COVID and this whole pandemic. So I hadn't really been seeing anybody, but I found out on Twitter. Either way, though, it doesn't take away from how awesome it feels to win an award like that. My dad won it in 1988, so I think we're the only father-son to win Coach of the Year, and winning it as young as I am is pretty awesome in itself. So, yeah, man, I'm proud. I'm happy.
I would definitely love to talk about, your dad and growing up under someone who was such a great wrestling coach himself. But man, in your first year as an RTC coach, you're just starting the RTC, you're getting so much production out of guys who have been on the world scene for a long time. A guy like Tyler Graff has been around for a while, and he ends up making his first world team and having great success. Pat Downey, I remember the expectations a lot of people were putting on him coming into worlds. He overperformed every single one of them that I saw. He wrestled his heart out. And all the guys on the team, Brucky, Bryce Meredith, Nate Jackson, Boris, all these guys turn in better and better performances under your tutelage. And it looks like they're doing it pretty early because you guys have only been around for a year.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, go ahead.
No, please.
Yeah, so I mean, we've been working for maybe 2 years now, but the first 6 months for sure were just Nate Jackson and I. We called it the NJRTC, the Nate Jackson RTC, because we couldn't get anybody to come over. And so then we started getting guys, and it's hard to get senior level guys to move and to switch locations without paying them a ton of money, and we didn't have a ton of money. So we just we started picking up some guys that had been bouncing around to a bunch of different places. Downey, Graff were two of the ones that had the most success, but a couple others, we have Ashnault now, and then Nate and CJ and a couple other guys doing really well. And the answer is technique, and you guys know it better than anybody. And the virtual technique, the techniques in person, the one-on-ones we've been doing is the main difference, and it's paying off, and we've had a lot of success. And I credit it all to technique that I go over, and I learned most of it from my dad. And it's really a coach-athlete relationship that makes the thing work so well. These guys see the work that I put in, and if I'm working harder than they are, they have too big of egos to let that happen. So if I'm working really hard, they have to work harder, and they all put the time in, but the technique is really the difference.
Let's start with your dad. And your father was an Olympic freestyle wrestling coach. He was freestyle, yes? Or Greco? Freestyle. And what was it like growing up with your dad being this incredibly technical, high-level wrestling coach? That must have been a really different experience.
Yeah, there was no forcing me to wrestle at all. I didn't start wrestling until 6th grade, which is decently late for somebody who makes it. But yeah, I mean, it was no pressure, and it was all trying to convince me to love the sport and to want to be at practice. And I've instilled that in my little boy, Parker, Savage Boy Parker. You can follow him on Instagram. And he loves it. He loves it going to practice more than I do. And that's what it's all about. The more you want to be there, the more you'll listen to the technique, the more you'll wrestle hard, you'll try and get better, you'll focus on different things outside of the practice room and watching technique videos and studying the best guys, watching their films. So, I mean, that was probably the biggest thing, not pushing me, which is a really hard thing to do as a parent who really wants their kid to wrestle, but also just kind of showing them the way and guiding him into wanting to do that thing. And that's what's so great about the NJRTC. I've put in a lot of time with these guys, but they have also put a lot of time in with my boy, and they want to make it a good experience for him as well. So it's been just perfect for all of us. But yeah, growing up with my dad it was all positive the whole time.
How old is your son? 7 years old?
He's 9 now.
He's 9 now. Has any 9-year-old done more flips in his life than Savage Boy Parker? That kid, every
I
time I
don't
see
know.
him, he's upside down.
Yeah, definitely. I have to. Normally, I'm telling him to do flips. At this point, I'm like, you got to stop. You gotta calm down. It's midnight. But yeah, he does a lot of flips, and we're gonna try and get him in gymnastics soon. But he's doing a lot of crazy stuff. He's starting to pass me, which is pretty awesome.
How did your dad, when you were younger, create that love of wrestling in you?
Whenever I would wrestle my brother, it was like his favorite time. So we would always just grab each other and rough each other up. But it's so crazy. Like he was in sales when I was like in my youth time, where people would be taking their littlest kids to youth tournaments and things like that. So we didn't do any of that. And his friends that all came over were wrestlers, but I never really made the connection. Like I really didn't know he coached the Olympic team. And when I went to my first week of practice in middle school, he was there coaching, and I was like, Dad, you're good at push-ups and this and that, but what are you doing at practice? Like I was just oblivious to how good he was. He was world silver medalist and coached 2 Olympic teams as the head coach. So he did a good job hiding it. I'm sure he was preaching it along the way, but yeah, I mean, I don't know how he did it.
Amazing. And it obviously worked out so well. And now, how did your dad introduce technique to you? Was it like 2 hours of just technique? Was it, how did you learn under your own father?
4 rules of wrestling: head up, back straight, hips in, pressure into your opponent. And you can check yourself the rest of your life if you pay attention to those 4 rules. You shoot a high crotch, is my head up, my back straight, my hips in, then I can start to get weight off of me and get pressure on my opponent. Once he taught me that, it's like you can start to coach yourself, and then he just has to work on little pointers, little details for the whole time. And it really helped me throughout my youth because my position was so good that I never got hurt. And I really never did. I mean, I had a couple things just from taking a beating my whole entire life, but I really didn't get hurt unless I was extremely tired or doing things I'm not trained to do. My whole career, even to this day, I still feel like I'm in great shape, good position, because I know those 4 rules. So if you want to take something really quick, head up, back straight, hips in, pressure on your opponent, and then check yourself, check your drill partner, and then the coach doesn't have to walk around and fix everything all the time. Once you have the room, being a bunch of little coaches, then you can start to get better as a team very quickly.
The phrase creating culture keeps coming up in my mind because I feel like that's a lot of what you're talking about, what your dad did with you, and what I think you're doing a lot at the NJRTC. How important do you think that is for a program to have a very particular kind of culture?
It's everything. And if you're a good coach, that's what your culture that you create should be exactly what you want your guys to be. And the one that we have created, whether it was by accident or we've made it happen, is these guys all want to help each other. If you watch senior level wrestlers, they wrestle, they get off the mat, they get really selfish and they do their own thing, which is great. At the senior level, you have to be selfish. Our guys are not. Our guys are not selfish in the slightest. I'm telling my guys to go up and rest their feet, get off your feet and go kind of relax a little bit. And they're like, Coach, but Downey's up. Coach, Nate's up. I have to watch them. And then if you look in the videos, it'll be me coaching and the other 5 of us sitting right behind. And it feels good when you go out there. We've been battling together. We go through wars, win or lose. Our guys are still there. A great example, I mean, there's some good pictures of that exact same thing with the guys behind me. But Downey was wrestling in the finals of the World Team Trials, and Graf had to go through, and Nate had to try and go through. And I told Downey to sit out, just go to a hotel and rest. And he was like, I got to be here. I have to be here for my guys. And that's something that maybe I've instilled in them, but that's just the type of guys that we have. We built this team, and I know some of those guys have bounced around, and maybe they didn't have that before, so they go in extra hard on it. But having a team like that on a senior level makes a big difference, and that's kind of the culture that we have. These guys, a bunch of them are in the same weight class, but they're showing each other technique, and then they'll lose to the guy because of that technique, and then they'll both work and get better in those positions, which it makes things difficult at times, but it makes the room rise up insanely fast when you guys care about each other and are really there for it.
So that wasn't something that you started like telling guys to do, like, hey, Graf's going to wrestle, let's all head to mat 6 or whatever. That was organic.
totally organic, totally their choice. I would be telling the opposite during the tournament, you know, but we built that relationship in the room, constantly talking about being there for your boys, and they took that to make it happen at the tournament. And I would turn around and be like, wow, that's really cool, man. I've never really seen that. So I think that is a big difference of how close our guys are, at least this initial group.
It was, I know exactly, you know, I can name off I'm a fan of the NJRTC. I think you guys are doing such amazing things. Another great example of this that comes to mind, uh, I remember watching Nate Jackson and Zahid Valencia, and man, it was an amazing match. I
Oh
think
yeah,
Zahid won by a point, but like, man, it was just, you know, so
the
back and
last
forth.
3 seconds or so, Nate was
He
beating him.
almost had it, right? Man, it was right there. I'd love to see a rematch. Both guys are so good. Uh, and yeah, the entire team is right behind him, cheering him on. And coming into the match, a lot of people would probably think Zahid is, you know, coming off an NCAA season and doing so hot and all this. But Nate was battling with him, and all your guys are cheering him on. And as the match is going on, you see that that's kind of building him up and making him stronger and stronger. And I just think that's so interesting because we don't see it at other RTCs.
It does
Question,
make it
please.
makes a huge difference. It really does. And it's like people people don't see that Nate and Downey go back and forth all the time. Like Nate is very, very good at wrestling, and I'm really excited for him to make that next jump. He just won the Medved in Belarus, which had multiple guys in the top 20 in the world, and maybe harder than the U.S. Open will be someday. And it's like when he's on, he's really on, and we're fixing a couple little small things for Nate, but watch out, Nate's going to be a killer here real soon.
A lot of these guys. So you talked about how you have guys that have bounced around. I know, you know, great example is a guy like Pat Downey, who spent time at a lot of different places wrestling, but it feels like he's finally found a home with the NJRTC. What makes, is it just that it's a good fit for him? Is it the kind of thing, you know, why is Pat best when he's at the NJRTC?
I understand Pat. Pat and I have a really good relationship. He trusts me enough to do the things that I ask of him, and he knows. I think the difference is he knows that I can help him, and he respects that. And if he knows I can help him, and he wants to win more than anybody, and so if he knows that I want to help him, and he knows if he puts the time in, he's going to get better. He's the workhorse. I don't know. I don't know what he did at the other places, but he's been good for us, especially in the room. He helps out other guys. He works out really hard. He's one of the most ego-driven, practice room, stingy wrestlers I've ever seen. This dude could be feeling horrible, sick, tired, never give up a point unless you really earn it, like the whole time, always. And that is contagious as well. Then we have other guys starting to not want to give up points and be stingy even when they're tired, and it just builds the room up. And these guys are trying to take the best from each person that they have. And yeah, I mean, he's changed the game for us for sure. And all over the country, a lot of people know him and like him. He's got connections all over the place. So when we're trying to recruit new athletes, he's the guy we go to. So he's been really good for us.
Is there anything in particular you look for when you look to recruit a new senior level athlete?
I look for guys who are good on their feet. I look for guys who are athletic because I feel like I can help them fix their position. And freestyle is a lot of technique on the feet, and then I'm very good parterre. It might be my best area of wrestling, transition, takedown to turn. And so that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for guys who are athletic, who don't really thrive in the folk style, holding people down. And if I can get some of those guys, I don't really care what the background is, because as we've shown that anybody that wants to win can win at this level. And once you go from the college to senior level, you have a little more freedom. And so I'm looking for guys who don't really like the long season, but are athletic and are good on their feet would be the main things.
As a coach, there's a lot of different hats that I know you have to wear. Technician, you know, nutrition, having people work out, confidence, culture, you know, we could name off a ton. How much of your role do you see as a mentor to these guys? Because these are not college kids or high school kids or younger, where, I mean, these are grown adult men who have families and lives and all that. How much of your role is still as a mentor?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't really look at myself like that. These guys tell me that every once in a while. I think most of these guys are just my friends for the most part, but then every once in a while, we'll get too friendly and I got to step in and be coach. But for the most time, I look at these guys as my peers. And I think because I'm in the grind with them too, I wrestle every single day and I lift with them and I'll be everything I do with them, but they're just they look at me a little different because I am the coach. And I have been through it. And so just like any other leader on the team, captain, whatever, I feel like I'm more of that role. But every once in a while, I will have to put my foot down, and then they snap in real quick, and they realize that I'm the coach, and it's kind of interesting that way because I am kind of young. These guys aren't much younger than me, and so yeah, more of a peer, but also play the coach role. But I'm the lifting coach, and they'll call me or text me if they're having any issues and whatever. So yeah, I just think good friends, good captain, coach, all of them.
Like a player coach, it kind of sounds like you're almost describing here.
Yeah,
and it is a player coach because you'll still hop on the mat sometimes, or not even a mat. I'll see you hop into the sand and do like a beach wrestling tournament in South America.
I'm working out too hard to not lace them up every once in a while. And I still feel I might be the best I've ever been. I'm not ready to cut weight and try and win 5 matches to get on the Olympic team. I don't want to do that. I love what I do coaching, and I don't want to take away from what I'm doing coaching if I was going to be an athlete. But we were in Cuba a couple months ago, maybe 4 months ago, and they said that I didn't have to register because I think we were drinking rum on the beach, and I started to feel a little confident. And they were like, you don't have to wrestle, you don't have to register. And I signed up, wrestled, and ended up getting second. I forfeit in the finals because that was it. It was an American in the finals. So, but yeah, man, I'm still pretty good.
Wait, was this a freestyle tournament? I'm not even sure if I knew you did this, or was this?
Oh yeah, wrestling? Senior level freestyle tournament. Wrestled a couple Cubans. I wrote 4 or 5 matches.
No shit, that's crazy.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't expect it. It was like, here's how the story goes. We were drinking with some of the coaches, and they're like, "Man, you're in good shape." I said, "I am in good shape." They said, "You still wrestle?" I said, "I'll win this tournament." And they said, "Well, you don't have to register." I said, "Sign me up."
Man, they called you out, but you stepped right up. I love it. You put your money where your mouth is.
I stepped on the scale. I weighed 71 kilos. The weight was 70 plus 2. There I go. I'm in. Didn't cut weight for a second. Yeah, it was a scrap. I think I was losing in every single match before I came back.
Just double over body lock or double over back arch.
I had to dig deep a couple times, but yeah, I still wrestle every once in a while, and it was fun. I don't really want to do that again, but that kind of fun, miserable.
So getting back to your RTC and all your guys, you talked about technique being so important, and I really want to delve into that for obvious reasons. First things first, you do have 2 instructional series on Fanatic Wrestling right now. Anybody that's listening to this, you can go into the show notes. It's actually linked, so people can go directly there and check them out for themselves. When you have an NJRTC athlete that you want to get better in a particular position, and this is him specifically, this athlete is having this problem. How do you go about improving them there?
So, and I've talked about this a lot in those instructional videos that I've done with you guys. I think you guys do the best job of anybody, and I want to continue to do more and more with you guys. And but
keep winning Coach of the Year. It's pretty simple to. That's an easy check to say.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. But the main things is everybody's different, and it's really easy for me because I have 6 or 7 guys that I have to focus on, and I can spend a lot of time with each of them. But those simple, basic things, is my head up and my back straight. These are the things that make you more athletic, more powerful, and will improve everybody's wrestling. And then I'll take a guy like Tyler Graff, who needs to be shooting all the time, and we'll work on setups. We'll work on where he's weak, which is probably edge of the mat right now. And then I'll take Downey, who's really good on edge of the mat, and we'll work on our leg attacks, trying to figure out how to get to different duck unders to get to his body, trying to shoot single leg to get to the body, which is different for him. Then Nate Jackson's an outside double leg guy, so we have to mainly focus on the hand fight. And so there's a lot of different aspects, and these guys are very, vastly different, total ends of the spectrum. But if you teach good position, all the basics, and master that, then you can start veering off. And this guy, Downey, when I'm doing privates one-on-one, can work on that. And then you can start to break it down into different athletes, because your team is never going to be the same. And my guys don't do the same moves, but as they all get better together, their position gets better. They become more athletic, faster, and more powerful throughout their best positions. And so that's kind of what the biggest difference was for me.
Do you put more of a value when you're working with the guys, and maybe there's not like one thing that one person needs to work on? How much value do you put on expanding your arsenal and adding new moves and new dimensions to your game versus sharpening what you already have? Which are you weighing more heavily when you get a chance to work?
Yeah, definitely the second one. I'm going to sharpen what they have, make the tools that they have and they've been doing, especially senior level guys, you know, like make sure that their go-tos are going to work on the best guys in the world. And we've, you know, those moves we've gotten Downey there doing upper body and Nate doing the double leg, but they can be better. So they work on everybody. And then once we get to a point where we're gaining like inches, then I start to work on the secondary move, or the double leg gets stuffed, you go to switch it to single leg. Double leg gets stuck, you slide out to duck under. And so then we can start to add off of their best moves and then figure out a couple different options. So then they work in all the scenarios, and then we'll start breaking off into adding more things. But I mean, Nate's going to double leg, Downey's going to be upper body, Graf's going to shoot a million times. You don't need to change who they are. You need to make them better in those positions and then add little details off the sides of those as secondary attacks.
You mentioned that you're changing up the technique based off the guy, and that makes a lot of sense, especially at the senior level. Are you also changing up the fitness and the lifting and the conditioning? Because I know that's something that's super important to you. You know, is that something that's specialized for each guy, or is it kind of like, here's the lifting program?
So yeah, I mean, everybody can do their own thing. I just want to see them twice a day would be the main part for me, because then, you know, it just creates the consistency. It creates that team. I think that's a big reason why we have the team that we do, because I see these guys twice a day, every single day. I know they have to be pretty strict with their diet, or they'll feel like shit going into the second practice, and that's going to be the wrestling.
When you say you want to see them twice a day, that means in a workout context, not just like show up in my place and let's hang out.
Yeah. So I'm going to see I mean, a lot of times we'll play basketball in the morning and then lift a little bit afterwards. Sometimes we'll do the full lift, or we'll do technique and lift a little bit, technique run, and it's fun. You know, we get to hang out. I know I look forward to it every day. And then we wrestle, and that's not as fun. You know, that's always going to be a grind, and it's going to be very hard and challenging, but that's what these guys love too. We teach a little bit of technique. I try not to slow the practice down. They tell me I slow it down, so because I like the technique. I think it's really important, and I know that they have to do it, but they like to keep the high pace going, so I don't really bring the senior level guys in like I would for a high school or maybe even a college practice. So I'll just kind of walk around the room while they're drilling, fix a couple things. They're grown-ups. They'll work on it because they want to get better. I'll move on to the next guy. And Bryce Meredith was our guy, and he said the best thing that I do is I evaluate the room really well. Like when Bryce is getting annoyed with me teaching, I'll leave it alone. And so as a coach, I think paying attention and not just following a strict plan is really important. Being able to be flexible with that plan. You might have a plan, but being able to veer off, because people get tired. It's the end of the week. Sometimes people are banged up. You read the room, and I'll go from doing 10 goes to 6 sometimes, just because I can watch my guys. Like, man, they're not getting anything out of it anymore. So it's important to not be stubborn and to pushing these guys through a plan. Just pay attention to what they really need. And so, yeah, that's kind of how our practice goes.
Man, I love it. About, on average, when you are wrestling, about how long is a wrestling practice for the NJRTC?
It depends on what time of the year. If we're doing a lot of technique, it could be 90 minutes. But once we're like in full training cycle, like maybe 6 weeks out, maybe a month out, it'll be an hour. Get in, drill really hard, take a break, wrestle really hard. You know, it's short, it's sweet, it's very, very difficult. And then, I mean, we don't do that much conditioning, which is maybe something that Americans are doing poorly, because our guys don't get tired. And one thing I tell my guys is, you're not out of shape, you're out of position. And the way to explain that is you could wrestle a high school kid all day. It doesn't really matter how good they are. They're not in better shape, or you're not in better shape than them. But why is that? It's because you're better than them. So if you're getting tired wrestling good guys, it's probably because they're a little bit better than you in certain positions. So if you can work on the hand fight, keep your position, make sure you're not exploding through positions poorly, it's going to make a big difference in how you feel in the 5th and 6th minute. So we don't do very much conditioning, but we're turning it up, and I think conditioning helps a lot for the mental aspect. Like, I know that I'm working harder than anybody, but from a physical standpoint, if you wrestle hard, you're probably going to be in pretty good shape for wrestling.
It seems to make sense, right? Some of the Russians don't always seem to have that, but for the most part, yeah, the Americans always seem to show up in really good shape.
Oh,
Something
yeah.
that I remember from your competitive career and that I've seen trickle to some of your athletes is a lot of comfort upper body. Uh, First, I want to talk about you, then I want to talk about your athletes. How did you get so comfortable with upper body? Because I feel like I actually think you were the first wrestling viral video, maybe ever. You and
Maybe
Rugarella.
ever.
Maybe ever. I think you might have been. You, oh my God, Rugarella with the body lock, and then you take him over with the double overs.
No,
I
I think
remember watching.
for
Please.
Flow Wrestling, it was the first video. It broke the internet. Like, it shut down the site. Everybody was trying to see it, and that was like the first time that ever really happened, for them at least. And then Kyle Dakes had a big one like a couple weeks later, and then
Against a friend of mine. Yes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay. There you go. Yeah. And so that's kind of was the beginning of Flow and how they took off. But upper body, me being comfortable is just putting some reps in. As high school kids get better and they win a state title or something, they want to start doing a bunch of crazy stuff, doing all the roll throughs and whatever the popular thing is. My dad was never really into anything funky like that, so we just started working on upper body techniques and a little bit of practice. And I mean, I did a whole 2-hour instructional with you guys on all upper body attacks, and people think upper body equals Greco, but I need to use my legs in almost every throw that I'm doing. I'm throwing off one foot, hooking a leg, or lifting a knee almost always. And I know Downey would say the same thing, and he's a big upper body guy. So it's just time. Put your time in, do some reps, and if you don't know what you're doing, maybe those reps are awkward and uncomfortable, but watch the technique. It's out there. And if you drill it, people are so bad upper body because they don't spend time there, because I don't know if they're scared of it or don't know what to do. But if you put time there when the rest of the world is not, or at least the rest of America is not, you can be very scary up there. And it's funny, everybody says that I'm an upper body guy. Like, I'm not. I just know what to do if I need to. And every once in a while you need to. And those are some of the big, I kind of made my name off some of those throws. But I just think it's a big part of wrestling. How can you be only good at lower body stuff? There's a whole body you can attack.
I agree. There's a saying in jiu-jitsu, people were ignoring legs for a long time, like leg locks and leg submissions, until now the common thing is from Professor John Danaher, why would you ignore 50% of the human body? Well, why would you ignore 50% of the human body? You can take them down with upper body stuff, and you have a really fantastic series on your upper body game, highlight reel throws and upper body takedowns. What's on there? Is it just double over body lock back arches for 2 hours, or what's on the series?
Yeah, it's everything upper body, and you're going to notice a lot of similarities, and it'll help you. I teach the duck under in the beginning, and then I teach double overs, over under, double unders, front headlock, and just everything upper body. I mean, it goes on and on. But there's so many similarities between the different ones. So as you drill every single move, you'll find out that they're all very similar. And once you master that position, it's kind of like we were talking about earlier. You master this step around, or you master holding the upper body and blocking the lower body, you'll start to be able to veer off, and the veer offs are going to be double over, changing your positions. And I mean, people think throwing is high risk, but this whole video series is talking about how to make it low risk, high reward. And I mean, I don't throw myself in my back ever. If I don't have it, I won't go. And this is the series that'll teach you how to get comfortable to where you know if you have it, and make the actual throw very basic and very easy. And it simplifies the whole upper body positioning. And I had a lot of fun with this one too. I did with Mario Mason, and Valamont was the coach, or the camera guy, which are two of my boys. So we were laughing, making jokes. I think this is by far my favorite one. But yeah, there's a lot of technique in both of these instructional videos, and I think you guys will love them.
I think so too. There's so much great stuff. And it's funny that you mentioned the similarities kind of, or at least I noticed the similarities between when you talk about shooting in on the legs, head up, back, hips in, back straight, all that. That
Yeah.
simplifies it. And so if I'm in on a double, do that. If I'm in on a single, do that. And then you're saying it's kind of the same thing here with the upper body stuff, where there's going to be a certain set of rules that once you apply them, you can really kind of go anywhere within the system. That's the case?
Definitely. I mean, I use the example of getting under a squat rack. If you've anybody's lifted weights, you would never lift with your head down or your back bent because you are weak like that. And why would you try and lift a human who's trying to stuff you down with your back bent? You can't lift anything like that. You'll hurt your back trying to pick up a bag of sand. Like you're trying to fight somebody who knows what they're doing, get in good position. So now my frame and my structure will hold some of that weight, and I can use my muscles to create angles and give my opponent off balance and make them a little weaker, which will end up having me finish the hold. So a lot of little adjustments in the upper body game, and same thing when you're on the leg. As your opponent's trying to fight you from those things, if you know what's making you stronger and him weaker, you can win the position.
I totally agree. I actually, I wrestled for 10 years, loved it so much, wrestled, just a very little bit in college. I didn't learn to throw until I started doing like judo and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I had to go someplace else because just none of the coaches I was ever around had really dealt with it. And so I think this series is something that can help so many coaches and so many athletes as they're going through all that. And then your highlight reel takedown series based off of the single and the high crotch, that's actually probably where you scored way more often in your actual competitive career, I would say.
Yeah, that would be my more basic go-to attacks. You have one shot to one side of the body and your other shot to the other side. And I mean, that's what I'm teaching guys like Graf, how to have perfect positioning, or at least to know where the perfect positioning is. And then you can drill that for a while, and then your muscles will kind of adapt to that, and they'll want to get to where you're strongest. And yeah, that's my bread and butter, high crotch especially, which is at the beginning of the series. And then I'll do a lot of single leg stuff once I get guys scouting me and they know to stop the high C, and I'll hit back to the other side. But having a very solid attack to both sides of the body is really important. And that's what I went over in the first series.
I'm seeing so much diversity in your game, left, right, upper body, you have different ways that you can attack. I do think
I got it all.
Man, you got it all. So the NJRTC, I feel like, is a club that has a lot of competitive diversity because you have guys going to different kinds of related sports, not just wrestling. You have guys branching out. Pat Downey goes and does a submission wrestling match with Gordon. Nikki Rodriguez, who comes and trains with the NJRTC, takes silver at ADCC, which is the Olympics of submission grappling. Not quite jiu-jitsu, but very close. You have multiple guys who have said MMA is 100% in their future. I don't see other clubs having this kind of situation where guys are dabbling as much. Why are your guys so comfortable doing that?
Yeah, so I mean, we're just trying to create athletes, and we have a really good social media brand for the NJRTC and all the athletes involved in it, which is a different subject, but it creates that awareness that more people see what we're doing and want to be involved in it. And so Nikki Rod comes in sometimes. Cody Garbrandt talks about coming in. Lance Palmer trains his wrestling with us. We've had Frankie Edgar in the room. And so, I mean, these people just want to be a part of it, and they know that we have the best wrestling in New Jersey, and New Jersey is one of the best places for combat sports. And I think that we're just happy to be a part of all these guys' success. And they know the type of room that we have. We're very giving. And we love having more guys in the room. It's more bodies for us. We're normally a room of 6 or 7. So we can get Nicky Rod in there all the time. Corey Anderson is top 5 in the UFC, and he's always in there working on his wrestling. And all these guys are just great dudes that want to get better. So I'm always going to be attracted to that type of athlete that just wants to share what they know, and they know that we're going to do the same. And so there's a reason why a lot of these guys want to work on their wrestling with us, because we're doing the same thing that path that they're on. So yeah, it's been fun for us to roll with some of the best in all the other different facets of martial arts. But yeah, man, it's been cool.
I love that because I think there's so much that we can all learn from each other. You know what I mean? Wrestling, jujitsu, MMA. How how different are we all? You know what I mean? At
Yeah.
the end of the day, everybody wants to argue about it, but I think they're all so similar. And I am happy to see that. You mentioned your social media and that uh, you know you guys have a really good brand, and you do, second only to Savage Boy Parker. Uh,
Right.
is that that's something that's really important to you guys? Is putting out this representation of who you guys are and letting people follow
I
along?
just think it helps. I just think it helps with everything. You know, these guys, um, they need to get sponsored, and it helps. We don't. People think that since we're in Princeton, we have, or at Rutgers, and both of these programs have a great following, that we're going to be just loaded with money and be able to pay these guys whatever. But I think that our guys could even get paid more. But since we have a limited budget, I want to teach these guys how to brand themselves well and how to hustle for their own types of sponsorships. And you see our guys doing it better than anybody, I think, simply because they know the fact that all these companies can do is say no. And we have guys hustling, trying to create money matches for themselves and for our team, and having sponsors from head to toe. I just came out with a shoe. Bryce had a shoe. They're all sponsored by some sort of apparel, some supplement companies, and then if they're not, then the NJRTC is probably sponsored by that sort of thing. So that takes a little bit of the financial burden off my guys, so they can just focus on training, which is number one for me. And yeah, I think, and it helps with camps and all these other different things. So having a social media awareness and just kind of learning how to be a little bit business savvy and have that hardworking wrestling attitude, these guys will get a lot done, and it's starting to happen.
I agree. If I could get up on a soapbox for exactly half a second here. If you're a senior level athlete listening to this interview, I can't tell you how many times I've like gone to a guy's Instagram and Twitter trying to find a way to contact them about working with them and giving them money, and I can't figure it out. There's no email for me to hit up. All their messaging is closed. Man, I have people out there would love to pay, but if you're a
Wow.
senior level wrestler, please have a way to get contacted.
Mm-hmm.
At
Yeah, they're missing some of the money on there. It's like it's important to be selfish on what you're doing, but sometimes having a little bit extra money in the bank can make your life a little bit easier too. And I think I was one of the first people to really do that. At least, yeah, there was a couple guys like Burroughs was, of course, paid and sponsored by everybody, but some of the guys who were just on the world team like me, which is a very good accomplishment, don't get me wrong, but a lot of guys weren't getting paid like I was, because I had a family to feed, and I knew the more I won and the more sponsors I had, the easier everybody's life was going to be while we were going through that time. I was getting paid $24,000 a year for wrestling. That was it. But then we were making a ton more money off sponsors and this and that. And so that's kind of drove my whole career, and made social media important, even when people were making fun of me with the beginning of the Humphrey challenges and all that stuff. All my friends used to roast me all the time. But we got through that, and now people are trying to copy what we're doing, which is a cool experience as well. But get out there and hustle, man. Don't be afraid of the negative aspects of social media, and don't be afraid of people saying no, because when someone says yes, it makes a big difference.
I agree, and I think that a lot of the American wrestling culture, and this is just my own personal opinion, a lot of the wrestling culture is so grounded in humility and humbleness and just put in the work that I think some people use that. Some people take that so deeply, they're scared to put themselves out there, and they're scared to even just say, I deserve this money. And it does hold people back. Set them up, find a contract. As a guy who pays wrestlers, negotiate, make your money.
Sure.
That's what we're looking for. I'm a businessman. It's okay.
Yeah.
And so I think you're so spot on there. Please, you have a new shoe out. Tell me about your shoe.
I got a new shoe, Wrestle Boutique, and it's awesome, man. It's comfortable. It sold out in 50 seconds. They do such an amazing job. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I didn't know that would happen. So, yeah, it's awesome, but you're going to have to wait for the next one because these are gone. But I'm seeing them up for like crazy amounts of money now, though, from guys who bought them just to resell them. But yeah, man, they're super comfortable. I'm just insanely shocked about the quality of this shoe. It's a college kid from Michigan, His name's Connor Boyke, is the main guy that I've been talking to. And man, he's done just such a phenomenal job, and I know he's going to put out a bunch more different color schemes. So yeah, keep on the lookout for more shoes and things like that from those guys. But it was a really fun experience, and I can't wait to do it. But most of these guys that have their name on a shoe are Olympic champions or at least world champs, and so it's crazy to even be in the group of those guys. But I don't think I have to have the credentials to be able to be a kind of an entrepreneur and try and make my own shoe and money and yeah, man, I'm excited to be working with those guys. But that was a cool feeling when the shoe came in the mail.
I bet. And if it sold out in 50 seconds, I mean, pretty clearly you didn't need to be an Olympic champion to
yeah, no, it worked out. Yeah.
Yeah. Your bet was right. When they have a shoe and they approach you, we want to make a shoe with Year Reece Humphrey. Are they like, how much input do you have on that process? Is it, I want this kind of lacing. I want to make sure the sole is a certain way, like, or is it just kind of like, we got it?
Yeah, so they had the most of it. We talked about the color scheme, and I changed a few things here and there and gave them my logo and signature and all that. But they knew what they were doing. And if you talk about negotiating, I tried. There wasn't a lot of negotiating, and I don't even know what I was really negotiating, because I was just so stoked that they were doing it for me. I would have done it for free. Don't tell them that.
Too late.
But yeah, man, it was yeah, I felt just so happy that they chose me to want to put this product out with my name on it. So yeah, I didn't have that much negotiating power, but yeah, we talked about the color scheme, and they already had most of the shoe details out, and my expertise is nowhere really near that anyway. But the shoe is very, very well made, and that's not me hustling or saying anything. That's like me being completely shocked on how good the shoe is, and that's kind of why I went with them.
Man, I love it. We're getting closer to the end of the interview, and so something I want to get into is, I remember when you were a wrestler for Ohio State, All-American, national finalist, did awesome. But I could always tell even then that folk style was not your preferred. And I think you might have even said something like this at the time.
Oh, yeah.
You really didn't prefer folk style. Can you kind of talk to me about that and being much more of a freestyler wrestling in folk style?
Yeah, so I think I could have been very good at folk style, but it's too many weigh-ins for me. Too many competition dates. The grind of the season wasn't really for me. Like, I can work really hard for a good 6 or 8 weeks to get pumped up for a tournament, and then cut a lot of weight and be ready to go, because I told myself I'd never make 33 again. But then I wrestled another 5 or 6 years at 60 kilos, which is 132. But that was night before weigh-ins. But it was also one weigh-in every 6 or 8 weeks, which was totally fine for me. I could eat like shit for a week, and then I could get back focused, and I wouldn't. During the college season, I would have to make weight Friday, make weight Sunday, do it again. And if I needed a week off, they would tell me I could miss Friday weigh-in. So it's still just the Sunday. Like, I'd make weight so many times, it was very, very hard for me. So most of the time by the end of the season, I was legit, like, didn't want to be there. And so people think that I liked freestyle more because I'm better at it. But I think I would have been a lot better at folk style if the format was a little different. And I wrestle a lot of folk style still, and I'm getting better at it daily. But I do think I'm better at freestyle, but probably because my dad was a lot better at freestyle, and that's what we focused a lot on, doing a lot of parterre stuff. And I was always excited for that season after the high school season, and because I could wrestle better guys nationally. And then I always look forward to it in college too, getting ready for the university nationals, and then university worlds was awesome for me. I went to Greece, I went to Italy. Some of my best trips were at those freestyle tournaments. And so I think my attitude was really good towards freestyle, but I really love folk style too. Just a lot of weigh-ins was a bit rough for me.
Man, I can totally appreciate that. And you're somebody who's obviously cutting a lot of weight, and we have the flow film to prove it.
Yeah.
So is that something that, when it comes to your athletes and their weight management, how involved with you how involved with that are you? And would you do something differently looking back at your own competitive career? Would you cut less weight now, knowing what you know?
No, I don't think I would. I don't know if I had a chance to do much different.
Still turned out pretty good.
Yeah, no, it did great. I think I would have been a lot better if I would have been 41 my whole career and then wrestled 66 kilos, 65. But I wanted to be at Ohio State so I could be drill partners with Jay Jaggers and TJ Enright, and that was the main reason why I went there. And then it turns out that Jay wanted to go 41 and Lance Palmer was 49, so we were kind of stuck where we had to be. Like, even if I could have beat Jay, we never wrestled off or anything, it would have ruined the team because we had 3 back-to-back, and so I was kind of stuck there for a little bit, which probably wasn't ideal for my career, but it worked out really well. But I did spend a ton of time trying to get better at making weight opposed to trying to get better at wrestling, which is why I feel like I got so much better post college. And so, yeah, no, I think I would have loved to be 41, 66 kilos, but I don't know, it worked out pretty well. And
yeah, it did
once
all
I
right.
could make the team, once I could make the team at 60, it was hard to want to move up and try and lose to Metcalf. So I knew I wrestled him in practice, but it just takes so long to bump up weights. That's 11 pounds or more than that. 60 to 66 is going to be like 13, 14 pounds. So that's like a hard thing to do in a year. And when I did it, it takes a little bit over a year of really training with that second next weight up to really start to feel that weight and get used to carrying it. Because you can put the weight on pretty quick, but being able to handle that weight is a totally different thing.
All right, Coach, you've been so generous with your time, and we've really appreciated having you on. I feel like I could talk to you for hours just about different wrestling techniques and pick your brain and really try to get in there, because you're somebody who I think really exemplifies the mission of Fanatic Wrestling. I think the first thing that a lot of people fall in love with wrestling is wrestling itself, right? The technique. How are we doing this and how are we doing it better? And so I think that's something that I see you pushing a lot, and I know we as a company push that a lot. Before we get out of here, I want to give you a chance, if you have any sponsors or anything that you would like to push or promote right now, I want to give you that platform to do that.
Yeah, so follow me on YouTube. I give away a lot of free technique on there, just like 3-minute clips for the most part. So if you're looking for just like a little intro to what I'm doing with you guys for the long, detailed 90-minute, 2-hour sessions, that would be a good place to start. And that's youtube.com/highlighthumphrey. If you want to follow me on Instagram, it's @highlighthumphrey. I spend a lot of time promoting happiness and family and creative content and some athletic challenges every once in a while when my body's not too beat up. But so on Instagram or even TikTok, I'm trying to blow the TikTok up. You see me doing some of that stuff. I'm not too old for it, so hold the Twitter fingers
it's
on
wonderful.
that one.
No, because I'm not on TikTok, and I just hear everybody's getting on TikTok, and it's like, how long until I got to get on there? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and so that's just another little avenue to try and be different and brand myself that way and try and grow the platform. And just every other social media. But I would really like you guys to try these Fanatic Wrestling technique videos, dude. You guys do such a good job, and I spent a lot of time preparing for mine, and also the NJRTC athletes. Nate has one, Bryce has one, Ashnault has one, Downey has 2 or 3, CJ Brucky has one. So I mean, our whole squad is, I think
everybody, even Boris, like everybody has one. Yeah,
Boris has one. Everybody is sharing the technique that we've kind of created together in their own different way of talking about it. It's interesting to watch all these guys do it. And so, I mean, technique is everything, and I appreciate you guys. And so, yeah, check it all out.
Awesome. And those series, again, are linked in the show notes. And they are just a fantastic opportunity to learn from one of the best coaches in America, a guy who I believe will eventually be one half of the first father-son Olympic coach duo. Reece, thank you so much for coming by and giving us your time. We really enjoyed it.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.